Phil versus Kai. Will we see it at Masters Olympia? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Iron Therapy. Joining Leslie Timble, our RX Muscle Staff psychotherapist, and I on the couch today will be John Romano. And we're going to be talking about all the terrible and conflicting stuff that goes on in people's heads when they have to decide whether they want to put on a pair of posing trunks again at 50 years old. John, the Masters Olympia is coming up again this summer for the first time in God knows how many years. I don't even know when the last time they held it was. I can't remember. When Jarka held it back in Miami Beach there. And there's a lot of bodybuilders who are deciding whether they want to go into this show. And, I guess the question is, what would motivate a bodybuilder to say, you know what, I want to win the Masters Olympia one more time. Haven't competed in 5 years, but I'm going to dust off those trunks. What do you think is the main driving force for that? Is it money? Is it glory? Is it one last chance?
You're asking me that with a therapist sitting up here.
Well, she's going to give us the real answer. I want to know what your bodybuilding bro answer is first.
Okay. All right. Diminished me right out of the box.
That's right.
So
well, I fit into the same category as you, so we're both diminished.
That's true. We diminish together. So diminution brotherhood. So what it depends. There's 50-year-olds and then there's 50-year-olds. So if you're like me at 50, yeah, you can do anything. So if you're like Joe Biden at 50, no, you back up. So that right there is going to give you, I think, some barometer to measure, whether or not you should do it. And, a lot of times those kinds of decisions are made. I think it's like having kids. People have them because they can, not because they should. So It's like you can compete, but should you? So sometimes just knowing that you could, might be enough. But I think that, there's an ego element to that got you into this in the first place. And just because your body quit didn't mean your mind did. And so I can see a very powerful pull to kind of relive, get back a little bit of what you lost. It's like anything else that we do, you want to always be able to reproduce what you did when you did it the best. And that's kind of what I think would drive somebody to go and do that, knowing full well the health implications, the physical limitations and possible dangers and all of that stuff. That whole level of consideration is magnified when you talk about somebody doing it at 50 rather than 20. So I think there's a lot to consider. But at the end of the day, I think if you're healthy, you feel fit, virile, and which would lead to viral, and and feel like you can do it and you look good. Look at Kamal. Kamal's what, 53?
But he never stopped. I'm talking about. That's why I think he has to be the guy, to beat, because he hasn't stopped. But I'm talking about guys like Johnny Jackson coming out of retirement. I don't know who else has expressed interest in doing the show, but I'm sure Samir will probably be there at 70 years old. But. If they lowered the age from 45 to 40 now, which I guess to get more people to enter, I think that's a mistake. I thought they should have kept it 50 and over, but Leslie, let me go to you, Leslie, for a second. When you're 50 years old, I'm 55, John's in his 60s, but to make that decision, it's not just you making the decision. If you have a wife or if you have, kids and some people might want to do it to show their kids, hey, this is what, when I competed, here, I'm going to give you one last shot. And then other people might have problems because their spouse is like, you're out of your mind. Why are you going to put yourself in harm's risk at 50 years old, taking anabolics and GH and, slamming your body with the weights and all the food you got to eat, and so sometimes you don't get, a lot of cooperation, making a decision like that.
Well, for people who are in a relationship.
Well, Leslie, someone comes to you and says, you know what, I'm having a problem. I want to do the show. I kind of want to do it. I don't know. Is it selfish for me to do it? I'm putting my body at risk. My family's not so happy about it. What do you tell them?
Well, here's the thing. There's a risk reward. When you have a family, the show, put it this way, the shows are going to come and end whether you compete at 40 or 50 or 60 or whatever. Your family is, you want to keep that intact. So it's important to have their support to some degree and to say, what are you willing to maybe negotiate? Whether that might mean, okay, not taking as much of the gear, or it's, how do you balance that? If the family
First of all, even Tom Brady couldn't keep his family together because he wanted to play football a couple more years. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Then I would have loved
what
to.
Would you tell Tom Brady? Hold on, here's a better one. Forget bodybuilding. Tom Brady comes to Leslie Timble, says, he's like, Leslie, I don't know what to do. My wife, she wants to leave me. She says I'm selfish. I still can play at the highest level. I think I can win another Super Bowl. I love doing this. This is my passion in life. Yes, I'm 45 years old, but you know what? I'm still playing at an elite level. What do I do? I don't know. I don't know what the right decision is.
Okay, we're talking about like the GOAT versus, an average person. But if we're talking about GOATs, then I would say, hey, look, I would want to do, first of all, a couples counseling session to talk about expectations, because yes, he still wants to do it. He's still very good at it. Yeah. But, Giselle's like, I want more time with you. So it's not that, that in itself is a bad thing.
You said you quit 2 years ago, which is what probably a lot of.
Well, this is the thing. It's following through on the expectations. So if you said I've got 2 more years and that's it, you got to honor that commitment. Now, again, there's going to be exceptions when you're the greatest versus someone who is maybe not the greatest, but still wants to do the sport.
See, John,
you have to be realistic.
Leslie's a sports fan, so she's really not a good therapist to be asking this question to.
Yeah, and you definitely don't want to ask me that, because I'll just say, get a divorce.
Which is what he did. And then he quit anyway.
But the thing is, I do support that, because the thing is that people are going to go their separate ways if you're not on the same page when you're passionate about something. This is something he's super passionate about, and he's damn good at it. So I'm not promoting divorce per se, but you have to be honest with yourself to say, if this is truly, again, look at the reason why. You have to look at your why. Family is important, yes. But like I said, when you want to be the best of something, if you can't be with a partner that supports that, you might have to end that relationship.
Well, she's going to say she's going to say I supported it for 20me years. Enough is enough. That's what. Look, I don't agree with that, but I'm just saying I'm playing.
She can say that. She can say that, and she has a right to say that because it's true. Right. But again, it's putting it in perspective when you're looking at that top elite level. It's very different than us down here, and you guys are way higher than I am. But I'm just saying. It's different as far as what you should expect from your partner when you're competing at that level.
Right.
So I don't know if we can necessarily take Tom Brady to a bodybuilder.
All right, let's extrapolate it to Phil Heath now. Phil Heath is over 40. He can do the Masters Olympia. And I don't know if he even has any desire to, because he's already won 7 Olympias. He's got nothing to prove. But let's say he wants to do it. He says, you know what? I'm looking great. I'm better than all these guys. Yeah. Come on. There's no one in this lineup who could beat me. Yeah, the money's not that great, but maybe it'll make me a little more popular or whatever. It's another title to add to my resume, and maybe his wife's like, Phil, you're 43 years old. What are you doing? You already got 7 titles, and what if he's getting resistance? What do you tell Phil Heath? And
then I would say to Phil,
we're making this scenario up. There's no truth. I have no idea. I don't even talk to
No,
Phil
I know. Yeah, so if we're talking about high level, and Phil, could he come back and win? I have no doubt. No doubt he could if he wanted to, like you said. But I mean, if he's getting resistance from Charisse, then I would say, okay, let's have a little conversation about this and talk about realistic expectations. Because is there movement that can happen with Charisse? There may or may not be. But let's say she's like adamant, absolutely not. I'm not going to support you. Then he's got to really look, is the why worth it to do that one more time, your relationship? Look at the quality of the relationship. So it's going to put it in perspective. And frankly, he's got the genetics that I don't think he really needs any gear anyway. He could do it. But I mean, you know, bottom line, Dave, is that, you know, you have to compare to say, is it worth it to compete if you're going to give up your relationship?
Right.
Again, I'm using Tom Brady as an extreme exception to say, no, it's not, you know, because you're that high up. But I'm saying, even though Phil is super high up in bodybuilding, he's got a great relationship with Cherise, and she's been very supportive, and they work well together, I think. So it's kind of why mess that up? How often can you find the right person? He's
probably the one who doesn't want to do it. Yeah. It's probably the opposite. What about Dexter, John? What do you think? You think Dexter's looking at this thing, saying that he probably wouldn't do it because there's not enough money. That's if Dexter saw $100,000.
Right. If there was more money, that might be a different story. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that could come out of the woodwork. Like, we're talking about people who are not still competing. We're talking about people who've retired, said they're never going to compete again, and then are considering competing. So if Dexter wanted to compete, do I think he could win? Sure, he could. But is it worth it? And I think he's at a place in his life that, you know, health and like spending time with his grandchildren and his family, like that means more to him, and it's not worth it. I'm not saying he's not tempted, because he knows he could probably win this thing. Right. But it's kind of like, you know what, once you've been outed, it's actually harder to get back in.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The longer the time that you've been retired, because it takes that, as you know, when you're in prep or you're actively in a season of preparing, it takes a certain kind of mindset and discipline. And when you've been away from it a little bit, it's hard to get that super disciplined mindset back. It doesn't mean you can't, but it takes a lot longer.
My question is, and John, you can answer this, why isn't Kai doing this show? The guy's walking around at 300 pounds, so why wouldn't he walk into the show and walk away with that title?
That answer is probably very long.
Coming from him, yeah. What's your answer, though?
I want to back up for a minute and talk about the spouse thing for a second. Because I think you're missing an element here. Do you know the snake story?
What's
the snakes? You probably know 1,000 snake stories, but this snake story is particularly relevant. This lady is driving in her car in a blizzard, right? And she drives on the side of the road. She sees a snake all coiled up, right? Rattlesnake. And she walks up to the snake, and the snake is just barely alive, you know, just hanging in there, freezing to death, stiff as a board. And she leans down and she says, if I save you, will you bite me and kill me? Blink twice. And if you won't do that. So the snake, of course, blinks twice. She picks it up, puts it in a blanket, puts it in her car, drives home, puts a heating pad on it, you know, gives it a little saucer of milk or whatever they drink, and you know, nurses it back to health and keeps it warm by the fire. She goes to work. The next day she comes home, she checks on the snake, she lifts up the blanket, the snake rears up and bites her 8 times on the neck, and she's laying there dying, and the snake is looking at her. She's looking at him, and she goes, how could you do that? I saved your life. You promised me you weren't going to bite me, or you weren't going to kill me, and you gave me your word, and now I'm laying here dying of 50 snake bites in the neck. And the snake looks at the lady, and he says, lady, I'm a snake. That's what we do. And so for a bodybuilder, that's what they do. If you marry a bodybuilder, you got to know that a bodybuilder is a competitive animal, and that's in their blood. It's in their psyche. It's in their day-to-day drive. It's what they do. It's who they are. A plumber is a plumber. When you ask a plumber, what do you do? Like, what's a plumber? A plumber is a guy who does plumbing. Okay. A bodybuilder is not a guy who does bodybuilding. A bodybuilder is a bodybuilder. That's what you are. It's like a race car driver. That's what you are. That's what you do. That's what you are. You identify as that. And you can't kill that without killing the whole support system, the person included. So once you agree that that's what I'm getting myself into, my wife can turn around and decide tomorrow, I'm gonna take a year off from my law practice. I'm gonna compete again in physique. That's a total possibility that I would have to go along with, because that's what she is. So you know, yeah, that's what you get yourself into. If you agree to go along with that storyline, then the possibility of a comeback is always there, because the bodybuilder is always a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I thought you were going to tell the scorpion and the frog story, but I guess it's the same. It's the same. It's the same outcome. Leslie, you go along with that? Or is that John just making excuses for us bodybuilders?
Well, it's going to be a big part of the population. It's not everyone, because keep in mind, it doesn't mean, even when you retire from bodybuilding, it doesn't mean you're going to stop training, but your interests are going to be different. So whether it be a different kind of business, whether you do a different type of sport, like maybe some people might take up boxing or some type of martial arts, or do fun kind of bike tricks or whatever it might be. It doesn't mean you have to stop training, but if your interests are in something else, that means you have to take your interest out of whatever that is and put it back into, are you willing to give up your new life that you just started rebuilding because you retired, give it up and come back and do the competition thing again? To be a bodybuilder, you don't have to compete to be a bodybuilder.
Let me reframe. Let me reframe the scenario here for you. Body.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
50 years old. I'm going to reframe the scenario for you. Can you hear me?
Sorry,
Leslie?
You're breaking up.
Oh, can you hear me, John?
I think it's Leslie's connection.
I think it's Leslie. Leslie, I'm going to kick you out. Come back.
She's on a delay.
I'm going to kick you out. Come back in. I think it's her. That's
because she's on a delay. She doesn't hear what we're saying until 5 seconds later.
She's sitting there like the deaf person who can't really hear you, huh?
Chris Aceto.
Well, Chris hears. He just his connection is always terrible.
No, with the glasses. This.
He can't see. Yeah, he's like.
I do the same thing.
I know. Me too. It's scary. But can you hear us better now?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. I'm going to reframe the scenario for you. Guy, 50 years old, former great bodybuilder. We can make up, any name we want. Doesn't matter. Has a health issue. Nothing terrible, but maybe, something that the doctor says not a good idea to be, 250 pounds. Not a good idea to be taking gear other than your HRT. Probably not a smart idea to, push your body through a contest prep. But this bodybuilder wants to do it. Now the argument is not with the spouse that, hey, I don't think you should do this because you said you weren't going to bodybuild anymore, but now I'm worried about your health. How do you counsel a person who's a bodybuilder who wants to compete but probably shouldn't because they do have some medical issues now that probably could increase their risk of harm, down the road?
Well, first of all, I'd want to ask, do you know any bodybuilders that have died? Because you might be the next one.
Yeah.
So, and the fact is, yes, bodybuilding is a selfish sport and we take risks. I get that, but not unnecessary risks. Whether you are 50 or you are 20, you can still have some type of, medical condition. You need to be smart if you're going to do this properly. And I would say, okay, for you to compete, to risk your life, what's your why? What would this give you? What's going to happen after you compete?
Right. I'm going to give you a good example. And John, you know the person I'm talking about. There was a guy from Staten Island, Joe. I can't remember his last name. Joe Bott something or another. He needed a heart. He was a bodybuilder. He competed locally. He needed a heart transplant. I don't remember why his heart went bad or whatever. He got a heart transplant. True story. And then he wanted to compete. He said, I want to compete and prove that I can compete with the heart. And he was on, taking, I don't know how much he was taking, but he definitely was still on PEDs. And he made a comeback and he we're talking at the Atlantic States level, not the national level. And he won his class at a show and he was like, yeah, he was like so happy. And I felt everyone felt good for him because this was a guy who he loved bodybuilding, this guy. And I'm sure he wouldn't regret for 1 minute what he did. I think it was about a year, maybe less than a year later after that. I don't know exactly what happened, but he died of, he died. Guy died. Probably as a result of, related to the bodybuilding, to not taking it easy and saying, hey, I'm glad I have a new heart. I got another lease on life. How do you talk to someone like that who just, that's all they care about? They love bodybuilding and without bodybuilding, it's almost like it's not worth them living. I don't fit into. John and I don't fit into that category. Right. We care about living a lot more than we do bodybuilding on stage. But some people don't.
And like whether it be something else, another kind of, we'll call bodybuilding a drug of choice. To mind you, it's healthier in some respects than other things. If someone has their mind set on something, you can't change their mind. You can try. I would say make the effort, try to educate them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's their decision. It's not the obviously a good decision, but you're not gonna stop them if that's what they truly, truly want to do.
Well, it's not a good decision for who?
Yeah.
Again, it's going to be so here's the thing. Sometimes people are not thinking rationally, believe it or not. Bodybuilders are not always rational.
Well, that's why I'm saying, what do you tell them as a therapist? Because you got this guy sitting in your chair opposite you, and he's talking like insane to you. That the guy had a heart transplant. He's telling you, I got to get on stage and compete, and I got to take drugs to do that. And you're, what do you say to them? I don't even know what I would say as a therapist.
Why would they even be sitting there in the first place?
Because their family said, I want you to talk to Leslie, the therapist. If Leslie says that this is okay, then fine. One
Leslie,
of those
the cardiologist.
Yeah. No, because the cardiologist.
Well, here's the thing. Well, okay. So when someone's not being rational and they're standing or sitting in front of me, I say, okay, let's say you do this, you do the show, you take whatever you need to take and you win it. Now what? Yeah. Because a lot of times people focus on everything up to that moment and winning. They don't think about the after. So I go into the scenario. I say, okay, let's say you do win it. What happens after that? Are you going to do another show?
Of course.
What happens if you die in 6 months?
I got to get my pro card.
Exactly. Right. Okay, so let's say you do the show. But let's say they do the show and they say the 55 and over, whatever age that it will be. But then it's the okay, you get this, you get your pro card, and you die. Is that worth it? And a lot of them are going to say yes, it's worth it. And I would really challenge that.
They don't really think they're going to die, Leslie. No one says it's okay to die. If they don't think they're going to die. They're just saying that to shut you down. Okay, that would be
right. Of course.
Me, for instance, I'm getting aorta surgery. Okay, next week. If I said to you after I recovered from this aorta surgery, hey, you know what, Leslie? Yeah, I have an arrhythmia, and I just got my aorta fixed, but I think I want to go up to like 250 again and compete again one last time to try to get my pro card. You'd say you're out of your fucking mind, right? I mean, you have to. I mean, what do you say as a therapist? How do you? I mean, it would be insane for me to do something like that, But there are people that will do it.
And I know you wouldn't do that.
No.
I would do an RX family intervention.
I think that's right. I think an intervention is necessary in that situation, right?
It would be. And it would be getting fellow bodybuilders. And I know you're just using you as an example, but for any bodybuilder who felt truly was going through that, an intervention might be necessary. Again, at the end of the day, we may not be able to change that person's mind, but it doesn't mean you can't try. You can't try to educate them. And literally, I would take them to the morgue, and say, look, this is you. Is this what you want? Think about, and then what about people in your life? How is this going to affect them? All you got
to do is show them Boston Lloyd's autopsy report. That's all you'd have to show me is Boston Lloyd's autopsy report, because he had an aortic dissection. That's how he died. And so, I mean, that would be enough for me. But I think rationally, look, when I was bodybuilding, there was nothing that I wanted to do more than bodybuilding. And I'm sure John was probably the same way back in the day, when he was doing it full force. But that's because nothing interrupted my life and said, wait a minute, whoop, you're going to die tomorrow if you continue. No one said that to me because I didn't have anything wrong with me. Had that happened, I'm glad it didn't, and it would have interrupted. I would have had to mentally change course, so to speak. And I think some people don't have that ability to mentally change course, Does that make sense?
And whether it's bodybuilding or other things, Dave, we're using bodybuilding as the example. But again, once someone is really headstrong on something, you can't change their mind.
No.
If they truly, again, I'm saying try to influence, do whatever you can with education. If we need to do some type of group intervention, you know, I will pull out all the stops, but at the end of the day, if someone's going to do something, like I said, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
So we try to help as many people as we can, but ultimately it's up to them to decide whether or not they're going to pursue this. Again, it's really diving into the why, and is that why worth it?
Right. And for someone like Dexter, it probably isn't, because he's already the winningest bodybuilder of all time. He's got nothing to prove.
Yeah.
But having said everything we just said, Kai, Phil, ignore everything I said on this show. Don't even listen to the show. But I'd love to see you guys battle it out on that Masters Olympia stage. Now that would be one for the ages, John, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Phil Kai?
Phil Kai rematch.
Jake should say, you know what? Scrap the other divisions. What do I got to pay these guys to get them on stage? Forget the prize money. Give Kai $100,000, give Phil $100,000, and you'll have the most successful pay-per-view and show of all time.
I think it would take more than $100,000, but
I don't think so.
I think there is a number. I think there is a number that would work.
Yeah. I mean, because both of those guys are still looking really good. It's not like either one of them has stopped, being big. They're both big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's what we want to see. And I was getting to this. I kind of hedged the whole show because, it's great that Johnny Jackson's going to do it. It's great that Kamal will do it probably because he's, probably the best 50-year-old right now out there. But the truth is it's 40 and over. They lowered the age category too. Who are the most popular guys who still have, good physiques? Kai and Phil. I mean, that was the battle on the Olympia stage. Kai couldn't beat Phil. They're still out there. They're still right there. We wiped out all the young guys now, so they don't have to worry about beating the new crop. They just got to beat each other. That's the show. That's the show we all want to see, isn't it?
Yep.
Kai versus Phil.
Absolutely.
Leslie, I think I'm going to hire you to start. I'm going to get you on Jake's payroll. Maybe you can stay in the United States. He can give you a full-time position of working. It might take you a good 3-4 months to get through to Kai, but Phil might be a little easier to get convinced to do the show.
And you know what?
Focus therapy on
I bet you if you got Kai and Phil, I bet you Dexter would jump in.
You never know. But what I'm saying is those guys are big. It's not like a hard stretch to get these guys in. All you got to do is pay. Look, there's a price. Like John said, there's a price for everything. If you put the right amount of money on the line for these guys, because the other guy's going to come anyway. But if you give Phil and Kai the right appearance fee, plus you put a prize money out there that's another $100,000, they can't say no. They'd be crazy to. It's a once in a lifetime payday. They could give him the speech they gave Rocky. Remember, John, 1976. Rocky, do you believe in the American dream? Yeah, I do. Well, Apollo Creed does as well, and he's going to give you a shot at the title on this country's bicentennial celebration.
Yep.
Right in your hometown of Philadelphia, PA.
How can you say no to that?
Right.
Right.
And to boot, we're going to throw in $100,000, $200,000 at the same time. Now that's what they got to do. They got to give Phil and they got to give schmooze to Phil and Kai. Get them on that stage.
Because I don't think that either of them would do it just for the passion of doing it. They would do it for the money.
Right.
Okay.
And the battle against each other.
And I think as a spectacle, as an event, as something for us, that's freaking fantastic. And if you could back up enough dump trucks full of cash to either one of their doors to get them to do it, it would be the most amazing thing. But the sentiment, the impetus to do it is not the passion. Well, the passion, but it's for money, not for bodybuilding. So that whatever that strength element is you got to break that. So but you can't. I just don't think it's fair to I think this decision must be like isolated. I don't think it's fair to the bodybuilder whose passion is what it is that drives him to this point, should be dependent on his decision-making process for approval from spouses and bosses and whomever. It's your life. This is what you are. It's like stop having sex. If you come one more time, you're going to die.
Yeah,
Who's going to do that?
I don't know if the analogy.
It depends on the level, though, too, John.
Yeah.
Because if they're
Arnold
amateurs,
said-
that's a different story.
Arnold said, it's like coming. I'm coming in the gym. I'm coming with my girlfriend. I'm coming on stage. Everywhere I'm going, I'm coming. So that's the level it's at. For you got to like try to share a perception in people's brains that don't understand bodybuilding, what it means to a bodybuilder to be a bodybuilder. So stop having sex. Do that. Nobody's going to do that. No guy is going to do that if his life depends on it. He's not going to do it. Not going to happen. Yeah. So it's the same with a bodybuilder. It's not going to happen. If that passion, if that drive is there to begin with and is still there and it's burning still, got to let him do it.
Phil versus Kai. Will we see it at Masters Olympia? I know I'd love to see it. Leslie, thanks for joining us today, giving us your insights. And John, stay tuned. John and I are going to do another episode of Rips and Rants following this show. For now, we're out of time. I'm Dave Palumbo. We will see you next time after my surgery sometime for another episode of Iron Therapy.